Why does Ned Russin need to meet Keith Morris? This is the thing that only happens on Just Press Record, people. I even wore my Cramps t-shirt to get down with this one. We talked about starting off in bands when no one comes to the shows and what you do about it. We talked about bands of brothers, literally with brothers in Ned's case, because him and his brother Ben, title fight, we get into a bunch of those stories. But Keith and the metaphorical brotherhood that he had with people like Jeffrey Lee Pierce, the stories you're going to hear, that, the show with Flea, there's so much good stuff. And we talked about community. We recorded this when some of the big ICE protests and the other chaos is going on in the United States right now. And within that political drama, two punk rock scene legends, one half the age of the other, talk about why community is still everything. This is a beautiful conversation. Roll some clips, Jack.
We're going to make more money by going out and performing in all of these different rooms, these various rooms in various shapes and sizes, because that's how we pay our rent. And a lot of us still have day jobs.
We were touring 6 months out of the year, at least. Everything is just kind of a blur. And it's like, the stuff gets kind of a little bigger and it moves fast, but also I think because you're doing so much, it feels like it moves really slow at the same time in a really weird way.
If it's 4 people or 4 dozen people or 400 people, it's still important. It's important to have venues like that. And you were saying DIY, and your DIY, even though you had use of the computer and you were doing a more modern version of DIY, it's still important for new bands to pay their dues and get out there and see how all of this works.
I don't do this because it's anything other than something I feel like I have to do. When I was in my mid-20s, that felt like such a dramatic time in my life because I felt like I'm like going through all like the creative stuff and I'll like never get it back or something. And I realized that's just not the truth.
It's a form of intoxication. The playing music and being in your zone, it's like playing a sport, like Michael Jordan being able to score 80 points in a game. There's nothing like this on the face of the earth.
I'm just appreciative of having the opportunity to play music. And I just want to, I'm just going to continue doing that. It's just, it's something that I feel like I have to do.
The rule is we just be good people. And being good people means we continue to do the things that we do and we live our lives. And being good people, good things will or should happen to us. We, being good people, spread goodwill.
You're watching Just Press Record, the audio-visual version of Cultish Creative. We're right here on YouTube. I'm Matt Zeigler. I'm your human fly on the wall. I got this shirt out of the closet today for this one. I invite 2 people on the show who've never met before, and we do this so you can watch along at home, see how they get to hang out, learn about each other in real time. You've got the OG version on cultishcreative.com. Like, subscribe, leave a comment below. We love to see quotes from the shows in the comments. Let's make some introductions. I'm going alternate reality scenarios. This first guest, we're going to call him Graham Cracker Mercy, because in another life, I'm pretty sure he'd be a small city insurance broker with a band or 3 on the side, and that feels really relatable to me these days. Now, who would those bands be? Starts at a tender, young age for young Graham. That first band, I think we'd call them Salsa Shark. I want to see if I can think about Salsa Shark as the middle school dance band for all your middle school dance needs. They wrote the original Baby Shark, Benny R, and the electronic drums. Watch out now. And after that came Title Search, which is a lawyer joke. They were kind of Weird Al lawyer joke group. For my other guest, I'm giving off Ultra Megadeth vibes. I think you'll remember that. They had songs like Safe in Your Skimmed Contract, The Great Head in the Ceiling Fan, Lawsuit of 72. Plus, sometimes they went dark. Classics like Jurors, Murder Your Memory. And who could forget the legendary appearance at the popular tax lawyer conference, Posse Numbers Festival. I can't. Then old Graham went solo, and he got all sparkly, adopted the name Sparkles. The next project, The Sparklers, a solo bedroom project, synthy, shoegaze, a degree in creative writing, landing him here today one way or another. I'm going to break into reality. It's not Graham Cracker Mercy. It's ex-title fight, current Glitterer leader, and most recently, author of Horizontal Rust. Great book, Ned Russin. Welcome to Just Press Record.
How's it going?
Salsa Shark, did we get some points?
That was a great lead off, Ned.
Thank you, yeah.
We got to make some introductions here because this next guest, now Ned, in another life. You ready for this?
Did you play a role in the Salsa Shark? Was that one of the bands?
That was my first band when I was, 10 years old or something.
So were you into cumbia and because I happen to have been in a band with a gentleman from Colombia who grew up with cumbia, and he brought the cumbia to our original band in the beginning. Black Flag, our drummer, Robo, played a drumming style that was very heavy on the cymbals and especially the hi-hat. A lot of and so lately I've been playing with a guy named Billy Stevenson from a band called The Descendants, who is highly influenced by Robo. So when I hear the word salsa, I immediately see a room full of women on Friday night, having worked all week, wanting to get out, have a few drinks, and shake their asses.
A perfect way. Ned, I know you already figured out who it is, but we're still going this. In another life, you're going to like this one, I think, here, Keith. We would know him as Johnny Bob Goldstein, a bait shop owner, operator to some LA locals with some small bands. White Flag, I'll go that obvious first. That's before he knew he gave up on that Salt Life bumper sticker and the band vans and his bait shop career, and it was so wasted on music. But next up, after a contentious, nervous breakup with his bait shop partners, he founded the Square Gentlemen, the band with the motto, just say no to group sex, famous for playing at venues like the Gun Safety Club. And who could forget their appearance in the movie, The Advancement of Western Civilization, playing rousing renditions of songs with lyrics like, tax this, tax that, seriously, we need more red tape. And after that fizzled out ironically, probably due to tax evasion, he was off to found On, that stylized O-N with the exclamation point. One can only assume they drew influences from Wham, which makes sense because Johnny Bob was often referred to as the George Michaels of the bait shop scene, and of course Dimitri Coates, pretty much as much that other guy as it gets. Time for me to knock it off. Let me repossess my composure with one of my favorite lyrics that he ever penned. I think it went, Shooby-doo-wop, say what, man? I can't believe I still listen to this guy. Black Flag, Circle Jerks, off, author of My Damage. Hands down, coolest guy we know on Facebook, according to my wife. Keith Morris, welcome to Just Press Record.
Well, thank you for all of that. that was, you know what? You gave Ned a really great intro, and that was a good one. You've obviously done your homework, Matt.
We're here to do homework, and you already brought it to cumbia, so I'm ecstatic.
2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up for Keith Morris. We're going to start here before we get into some of the real stuff. You can see my hair is getting a little long. Ned's is getting really long. When do we shift to dreads? Do you got any good tips for the hair maintenance routines, Keith?
My hair hygiene doesn't really exist. Maybe washing with some Dr. Bronner's mint soap a couple of times a week. You know, we went through this period where we have these shampoo companies. One of them, their sales pitch was, you can wash your hair 3 times a day. So that means you can go through a bottle of our shampoo once a week.
Planned obsolescence at its
Oh,
point.
yeah. And it's like people don't understand that your hair has a natural way of cleansing itself. Yes, there is an oil that builds up on your hair. That is the reason why I have dreads. I didn't wash my hair for 6 months. Now, people would think, oh, people must have been offended by the odor that came off the top of your head. And it was like, Not really. Your hair, when your hair gets dirty, your hair doesn't smell that bad. It's a natural smell. It's not like, you've been out rolling around in oil and grease and, cleansing products and, all sorts of garbage like that. So it's not that bad of a thing. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, good. Ned, I hope you're taking notes on this. We're going to have to work on our dreads from here.
And Ned, I want to make a quick comment because I'm looking at your space behind you.
Sure, yeah.
And your space looks a little bit like mine. I'm a Virgo, and I have piles and piles and stacks of records and compact discs and magazines and paperwork. And my place is, what I'm getting at is your place is a little bit messy like mine. And they say people with messy spaces are genius.
This is the clean room.
Yeah.
Ned, I need you to tell this story or explain this. I want you to explain to Keith, and I think this is the first place you played, so tell me if not, because I want to get your perspective on a place, and I got one for Keith too. Café Metropolis. Is that the first venue you guys played at a real show? How would you describe it?
Yeah, it was the first place we played. We did play a middle school dance before that.
Let's get this on the record. Salsa Shark was a real band.
Yeah, we played, 2 shows, I think. But then Café Metropolis was this. I'm from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. More specifically, a suburb of Wilkes-Barre called Kingston. And there was a venue in Wilkes-Barre called Café Metropolis that opened in the mid-'90s, right, Matt? And it was originally in this dilapidated hotel downtown called Hotel Sterling. And then they moved to a location on South Main Street, and it was there for, 15 years, a little less probably. But it was, I think as far as venue goes, it was pretty kind of generic almost. It was just kind of like a blank room. There was a stage at the far end. They had big PA speaker stacks attached to the wall. Originally it was painted like this kind of gross maroon color, graffiti everywhere. And then there was like a little actual cafe that I never saw anybody order any drinks from at the front. And that's like where the bands did the merch and the stuff. And we were there every, Friday, Saturday, Sunday from the time we were 13 till it closed down when we were 19 or 20 or something. And it was just like the kind of local independent venue that every band kind of came through when we were coming up. And so, yeah, it was just like, I don't know, coming from a place with kind of decidedly very little significant culture, that was kind of like the cultural hub for us, where people from other places and other cultures would come and kind of like show us how other things could exist. I don't know. It was a pretty significant space for us.
Keith, you had a bunch of these places.
No, that sounds like a really great place. That sounds like an all ages space where all different types of people could go and socialize, have a good time, hear music. You said there was graffiti on the walls, so obviously they would allow people to do their markings and their scribblings and whatever type of quick, fast artwork they could do to get away with as quickly as possible. The last place that one of my bands played that resembled your place in Pennsylvania was a place that was set up by Bernie Sanders in Vermont, in Burlington, Vermont, which is where he's from. And what was bitchin' was when we pulled up, there were kids skating on skateboards in the parking lot. There was all sorts of socializing going on. Once inside, we did our sound check, and we were talking with the people that volunteered there. There weren't like real employees there. They were all basically volunteers. Bernie Sanders had set this place up when he was mayor of Burlington. He set this place up for the kids to have a place to go for music lessons, a place to be creative and do artwork, art lessons. They would show movies. So it was like a teen canteen, a center for all of the kids to gather. And, that situation would be great for any of the authoritarian figures because they knew where all the kids were at, and it was real easy to keep an eye on them. If any of them got out of hand, it would be like, a slap on the wrist. Don't come back here for a couple of weeks, kind of like if you got suspended from school. But it was great. There was a fantastic PA. The people that were there were all appreciative. Like, well, you would come and play here. You would come and play in this place. We thought you were too big to come to a place like this. And it was fantastic. And your place sounds about the same as the little mini cultural center for the kids there in Vermont.
Yeah, we played 242 Main. I think it was our first little East Coast tour that we booked when we were still in high school. We booked it ourselves. And that's one of the few places that, we had the ability to book everything with the help of the internet. So it was a very different world from, the early DIY days, but we were still booking everything. And that's one of the places that immediately came up as a place that would have out of town bands come play that were largely unknown. And we had a very different experience because we pulled up and there was 4 people that came to the show, but it felt similar to what we knew because we came up in a place that was largely kind of boring and insignificant, but it had this space where bands could come and play. And so, I don't know, it's still something that I feel is really important, and it's something that's harder to have access to as rent goes up everywhere and as people are less interested in supporting, I don't know, the arts generally and just in giving people a place to socialize. But it's, all these places that have coming on are still important and are places I still think about a lot.
Well, Keith, if it's 4 people or 4 dozen people or 400 people, it's still important. It's important to have venues like that. And you were saying DIY, and your DIY, even though you had use of the computer and you were doing a more modern version of DIY, it's still important for new bands to pay their dues and get out there and see how all of this works. Because it's not always, hey, we're going to be just like Green Day, or, hey, we're going to be just like Guns N' Roses, or, hey, we're going to be just like Nirvana. It doesn't always work that way. But the great thing is you do it when you're young because you get to go out and you get to deal with the public. You get to see these situations on various levels. Some people become successful, but they still have to go out and play live. They have to get their live legs underneath them because the way that the entertainment business is set up nowadays, that the days of the big recording contracts, those are gone. What we've discovered is we're going to make more money by going out and performing in all of these different rooms, these various rooms in various shapes and sizes, because that's how we pay our rent. And a lot of us still have day jobs. A lot of us still have other things that we do. We're interested in other things. And, that's the modern world.
Yeah.
Keith, talk a little bit about, because I think this is part of the kids showing up and having a place to do this stuff. It was short-lived, but it's a piece of history I don't think that gets talked about, and you were there, the Masque, that venue.
Well, the Masque sounds almost like the venue that Ned played in the suburban city. The Masque basically was just a cinder block. It could have been an underground parking lot. Now, granted, it wasn't that big, so if they parked 20 cars in the Masque, that was all they were going to get in there. So the Masque basically was just an underground basement, bomb shelter type scenario that was indestructible. Everybody came in, spray painted their graffiti. Basically, the shows that I saw weren't just all punk rocks. It wasn't all just spiked-haired, orange-haired, day-glow-colored hair, people dressed in leather, people dressed like the Ramones. It was a freak show. There were hippies, dippies, drug addicts, a few bikers. It was a really, really interesting mix of people. A lot of fashion people, a lot of Hollywood, future actors, actresses, filmmakers, people that were going to be writing books, all sorts of different people. It was great. Now, I got kicked out of that place. I got physically thrown out of that place a couple of times by a guy named Dutch, who looked like he would have been the blonde-haired member of the Ramones. But he looked like he played football. And he was not taking any kind of lip from anybody. And as it turned out, we became really good friends. The Masque was ground zero for punk rock in Los Angeles.
How old are you? And give us just a couple of your favorite shows that you saw there or played at the Masque. How old were you when you were there?
When I was there, I was 20. I want to say, I think my first year in Black Flag, I was 25 years old. So I was 25, 26. I saw the Weirdos. I saw the Germs. Saw the Avengers. Black Flag. We were told on several occasions that we would never, ever be allowed to play there because we didn't look like any of the bands that played there. And I think it was the way that we went about trying to procure shows at the Masque, cornering Brendan Mullen to the point where Brendan had Greg Ginn and I physically thrown out because Brendan was scared of us. I'm 5'5". Brendan was not much taller than I was. And at that time, I weighed 118 pounds. It was like any of the gals that were there could have lifted me by my back belt buckle and tossed me out onto the alley next to the Masque. We eventually had ground down on Brendan to the point where it was just like he threw his hands up and said, "Okay, you guys can play. I'll let you play." We ended up playing the very last night of the Masque. And it was great for us. We actually got to perform for the LA Fire Department, who showed up and said, "You're through. We're closing you down." LAPD showed up. They were tossing their weight around. And the place was completely packed because it was the last night of the Masque. And there were a lot of people that loved the Masque. So it was a really great night for us. And eventually, Brendan and I became really good friends. We were very close. And he was actually at one point going to help me write my book. But he unfortunately passed away from he had a massive stroke, and they had to pull him off of life support. And at the time I was really bummed out, but I was more bummed out about not being able to write my book with Brendan than I was actually about his passing. And I eventually, and it was really soon after he passed, that I came to the realization that, he's one of your best friends, and you're acting like a complete fucking utter dick. You just lost one of your best friends, and you're bummed out that you don't get to write your book. That's weak. That's shallow. That's not even the shallow end of the swimming pool. That's the little blow up pool that you would put in your front yard for your 3-year-old neighbors.
Ned, think about, I'm going to swing this. You got these little clubs that you start off, and then stuff builds up. And there's a show I've always wanted to ask you about. And if you could think of a bigger one than this, tell me. This title fight was Webster Hall, New York City, with, I think, La Dispute and the Hotelier.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember this show?
Yeah.
Was that one of the bigger shows you guys played, or was that a particularly memorable show for any reasons?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of the bigger shows we played. That was in 2015, I want to say. And it was kind of like, I don't know, the culmination of a couple of years of touring pretty seriously and putting out, records pretty steadily. And so kind of felt like it was an era for us where people outside of our little world were starting to know who we were. And I don't know, a year or even less before that, I actually moved to New York, and I was living near Webster Hall, and I was working there, and I was home. I was just a loader at the venue. And so when they had gigs that needed like 20 guys, I was on the call list. And so I was like working in this venue that I was playing when I was on tour. And that was like a pretty surreal experience. And also it's just one of those places where growing up, I watched a lot of videos of New York hardcore bands playing. It was, it was the Ritz. And so I was very aware of its history, and it was, I don't know, that was a pretty exciting time, I guess, to like put it mildly, but it also just is one of those things where you don't think about it that much, because it was like, we were just touring. We were just playing shows. That was the important thing for us. And it's obviously, it's exciting to play to a lot of people, and it's exciting to play like a historic venue like that. But we just wanted to play, and we just wanted to continue going out there and playing new places and playing to new people. And so it's, I don't know, it's not one of the things that you kind of stop to reflect on in the moment. There were a couple of things where I feel like we were kind of, I don't know, impressed by in the moment. Like we played like a big festival in Japan one time, and there was like a bunch of people and stuff like that. You kind of stop and you think about it, but it's also just like, we have this today and then tomorrow we have another show. So we just have to keep going. It's not, I don't know. There's not a lot of time to sit and think about it. And I don't really care to do that either.
What's your philosophy on this, Keith? Do you notice stuff when it's happening? Do you stop and think about stuff when you go back to it?
When you're on tour and you're rolling along and doing your thing, you can stop to think about, God, I'm playing CBGBs, or I'm playing the Whiskey A Go-Go, or emos in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact of the matter is like you were saying, Ned, you're in this and you're doing it. And there's a certain, you're getting your live legs going, you're getting into your groove, and sometimes it can become a blur.
Mm-hmm.
You're fortunate that you got to play some of your favorite places, some historical places. That's going to happen. If you stick to doing this, you're going to be playing in some places with some of your favorite bands. You're going to be playing in some of these places with some of your friends. You're going to be playing to the point where you'll be playing these places and you'll be familiar with them. You'll know the layout of the stage. You'll know the layout of the back area where everybody hangs out. You'll be familiar when you pull up and you're loading in and you get to walk around the venue before anybody's in there. It comes with the territory. It's inevitable. If this is what you want to do and you stick to it, you're going to have the opportunity to play some of these places that your friends tell you about, or some of the places where you'll read something happened, like the Sex Pistols up in San Francisco at the I forget the name of the venue, but it's like one of the really famous older venues in San Francisco. And it was the night that they broke up, and there were a lot of people from down here in Los Angeles that went up there to see. It's because it's the Sex Pistols from England and everybody owns the record. And there's all sorts of situations like that, and
well, I got one for you, Keith, because kind of like, and Ned, just the idea that you were working loading at Webster Hall before playing there. That's another way to get to know the place inside and out, right? To see the backdrop. Keith, you did one. It was West LA at the Music Machine. So this is Circle Jerks. This is a show. Give me the time machine. I'm going to this. Greg Hetson on guitar, Chuck Biscuits on drums. Flea plays bass. And if I got this right, the lineup is the part that I can't get over. I don't want to talk about weird lineups like this. Spinal Tap opens up, then Slayer plays, then the Circle Jerks, and then the Blasters for like $3. You have any recollection of this show? Does this stand out at all?
It's one of my favorite Circle Jerk shows because if you look at the lineup, the lineup's ridiculous. It's
insane.
When I first started going to shows, there was no. One of the things that happens nowadays is, say you go to a punk rock show, it's going to be all punk rock bands. It could be 3 punk rock bands. It could be 6 punk rock bands. And there's not a lot of variation. When I first started going to shows, the first show I went to, the first big show that I went to was Three Dog Night, the God, I forget the name of the opening band. I actually have a ad for it right here. Was the Grassroots, who had all of these bands had hits on the local AM radio stations. Was the Grassroots, Three Dog Night, and Steppenwolf. And it was, I'll never forget that. It was one of the greatest nights of my life. We would have shows. I'd mentioned the Whiskey A Go-Go. I went to two shows at the Whiskey A Go-Go where Funkadelic opened for Robin Trout. And then I went and saw Rufus and Shaka Khan open for Iggy and the Stooges. The four completely different bands, and they didn't, it wasn't like, well, we got a headlining rock and roll band, so all the other bands have to be rock and roll. And it wasn't like that. And that's what was so amazing. It's like going to a music festival nowadays. One of my last bands off, we played a show in Texas where we played before Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, who played right before the headlining band, which was TV on the Radio, talking about three completely different bands. And that's the beauty of the show we played at the Music Machine was like I said, one of my favorite circle jerk shows. It was unbelievable because the people that were there were so scared of us, and we're like little shrimpy dudes. It's like all of our
you and Flea side by side. I mean, that alone.
And Greg Hetson.
Right.
I'm the same height as Greg Hetson. I said earlier, I'm 5'5". I'm not some big burly football wrestling dude. No. We're just a bunch of shrimps, and these people were scared of us. I mean, the people that were at the front of the stage knew who we were. They were fans of our band, so they knew what to expect. But there were people that had moved like 3 feet back, 5 feet, 6 feet back. They were like, they were scared. And I loved that. It was like, come on, people. We're not going to jump off the stage and bite you. We're not rabid animals. Get down with the program.
LA Punk still had like a scary reputation at that point?
Well, this was before all of the big punk rock shows at a place called the Olympic Auditorium. Yeah. So the Olympic Auditorium, which is downtown LA, was famous for boxing, wrestling, and roller derby. And they stopped having those events at the Olympic Auditorium. And one of our favorite promotion companies, a group called Goldenvoice, started doing big shows there. And what they were doing was they were flying in bands from Europe. Mm-hmm. Like none of the other promoters would touch bands like GBH or The Exploited or the English Dogs or Cockney Rejects or Peter and the Test Tube Babies or Susie and the Banshees, even a safe band like Susie and the Banshees. A lot of these promoters would not go near these bands, and Goldenvoice was like, we got no problem. These are bands we want to see, so we'll fly them over. What they were doing to make their money back flying these bands over was they would have them play down in San Diego, which is a couple of 100 miles south. they would have them play maybe over in Bakersfield or Fresno, have them play a show up in San Francisco. Just rent a van, throw all their gear in the back of the van, throw the guys in the van, and drive them around to all of these. They'd end up playing like 3 or 4 shows so that Goldenvoice could make back their money, and also that would allow Goldenvoice to give them money to take home with them.
Wild to think about all those steps to bring that UK scene to the West Coast when nobody else was betting on it. And what era is this? Is this early 80s at this point?
This would be probably probably mid 80s.
Okay.
About 83.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, 82, 83. So it was the early 80s. And they'd do shows with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, the Cramps. Oh geez, we played a show at a place called Perkins Palace. See, what had happened was Goldenvoice found a venue out in Pasadena that held 1,200 people. And there's a certain thing that happens as you're becoming more popular. You're going from playing a place that holds 300 people to a place that holds 500 people, 600, 700 people. And then you're moving up, as you're becoming more popular, you're moving into like what equates to be an old burned out movie theater or an opera house, which would normally hold anywhere from 900 to 1,200 people, 1,500 people. And then in your progression, playing a place like the Olympic Auditorium with 5 or 6 bands and having anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 or 5,000 people. I mean, we played shows at the Olympic Auditorium where there was 5,000 people.
Something amazing about those scaling up like that, too.
This was Goldenvoice. And then eventually Goldenvoice would go back to smaller venues. Like we did the show at the Music Machine with the Blasters, Slayer, Spinal Tap. That wasn't a Goldenvoice show, but Goldenvoice would eventually do shows at the Music Machine for the smaller bands. Like the smaller bands needed a place to
work it out,
start their growth.
Do you think Southern California always had like the biggest scene for punk though? Because in my experience, every show in Southern California has been like massive. Always so many young kids coming out. It's just like in the culture for young people to be into punk and underground music there, and it just feels like, I don't know, everybody I talk to, it's all the same experience of being like always impressed with how huge the shows in Southern California are.
Well, we were very fortunate, and we are an extremely large area of people, so that makes perfect sense. There were big shows in New York, but a big show in New York would be, you were talking about the Ritz.
Yeah.
And Webster Hall. Webster Hall is what, 1,200 people, 1,500 people? Yeah. That in New York, for a band our size, that's a great place for us to play. And if we were extremely lucky, and we were we've had periods of being high and being low because This is like riding on a roller coaster. There's periods where it's really happening, and then there's periods where, well, your popularity is starting to wane, and there's newer bands that are more popular, and they have songs on the radio, et cetera, et cetera. But Webster Hall, that's a great place to play. We played the Ritz a couple of times. We played CBGB's Irving Plaza, playing a couple of nights at Irving Plaza.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's a great room.
Yeah.
Ned, what was like the arc like for you? You experienced this playing for 4 people in Vermont, playing for a small group and then a bigger group in a scene. How'd that go for you? What was the experience?
I don't know. Again, I feel like my answer is like, I mean, obviously you notice it because you go from, like Keith said, like you played to like a couple hundred people and then you played to 500 people. You experience that and you get, like you book the tour and you see like, okay, these shows are bigger now. We're playing bigger venues. But I don't know. It's not something that I like. It's not something that I keep track of, and it's not something that I like put a lot of thought into, because it's not like a kind of, it's not like a business where it's like,
right, clocking Big Mac sales. There's
like, okay,
1 billion served or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's not like, okay, we played to 200 people this year, so next year guaranteed we're going to play to 300, and then if we keep doing new music and new shows, we come back, there'll be 350. Like it doesn't scale like that. It's not like this kind of thing that you could bet on. It's just like you kind of go and you do your best and you see what happens, and then if people continue to show interest, then you kind of come back, and so we just kept playing. And the thing is, in that time, we were like from 2009, 2010 till 2016, we were touring 6 months out of the year, at least. And so, like Keith said, also, like everything is just kind of a blur. And it's like, yeah, like the stuff gets kind of a little bigger and it moves fast, but also I think because you're doing so much, it feels like it moves really slow at the same time in a really weird way. And so it's like all these changes are occurring and you could kind of track them and notice them, but they're just kind of, I don't know, you're just so focused on playing music and like, I don't know, having like a good show that I'm not like, okay, after we do this thing, we got to play to 500 more people. It's just like, I just want to play a good show tonight. And I just want to like do this and whatever happens, we have to do tomorrow. I'll figure that out tomorrow.
But you play that show, you have a great time, you have a really good crowd, and you keep your fingers crossed that the next time you tour, you get to play that venue again if it's available.
Yeah.
Because there's a zillion bands out there now, and it's like you got to have a really great booking agent who gets a hold on the room, and keep your fingers crossed that the next time you go through, you get to play that same venue, you're familiar with it, and the crowd grows in size. See,
Yeah.
we keep talking about your first show where you played in front of 4 people. A lot of bands have to do that. I mean, I was just on a thread on Facebook where I explained to one of the guys who happened to be on this particular Circle Jerks tour, we played at the Sandwich Shop across the street from the University of Tennessee, and it was all ages because they served food. It wasn't just booze. They served food, which turns it into an all ages venue. And it's a restaurant. It's not like we're playing a bar. It's not like we're playing a club. We're playing in a restaurant, setting up in the floor over in the corner, and hoping that because it's a college town, there's going to be a bunch of people there. Maybe there was 100 people there, 150 people. But as it turned out, there was a handful of kids that they were all neighbors that they all decided to come to the show. And one of the kids was brave enough to come up to us and ask us if we wanted to attend a party in their garage in the cul-de-sac in a suburb of the city in Tennessee, Knoxville, I believe it is, where the University of the Rocky Top, the volunteers. So we end up showing up to the cul-de-sac and hanging out with these kids in this garage on a Saturday afternoon. And as it turned out, they were in a band and they had a practice space. It was the practice space. I mean, who hasn't rehearsed in a garage? And we end up playing a set of music. You know, we end up playing like 25 songs for all these kids on their bicycles and their skateboards, and, you know, moms and dads walking their dogs up and down the sidewalk, and the mosquitoes and the bugs and the horrible heat. We played a lot of shows like that where we'd pull up a perfect example, Mobile, Alabama, and we've never gone back to Alabama, but we played the show in Mobile, Alabama. We pull up, there's like 16 kids out on the sidewalk. They're lined up. They want to come in to see the show, and it's like a show that starts at 8:00, and it's 21 and over. They're not going to get in. So we got to go to the owner of the bar and say, look, can we let these kids in here and let us play for them? We did that on so many occasions. It was like we ended up playing 2 sets a night, and that was just how it was. It was just, that was part of our struggle. That was part of what we had to do to, you know, get over.
There's something about that inclusivity of knowing who the people are coming to see you, knowing when nobody else is coming to see you, just doing it for each other. I want to take this here, and Ned, I'm going to go to you on this first, because you got literal brothers in this with you. Like, what did it mean to play in bands with Ben, to play in bands with, like, I mean, you've got a very musical family.
Yeah.
What did that mean to you on that climb, to experience that with somebody that, I mean, a literal twin?
It's kind of like at least 2-sided, probably more, but, you know, so the drummer of my band Title Fight is my twin brother. So we grew up playing music together. Like, we learned how to play music together, and we experienced all this stuff in real time. And so I think him and I have a very special, I mean, obviously we have a special bond because we're twins and we were in a band together, but like we have a very serious musical bond because we literally learned how to play with one another. And so there's like that kind of like very wholesome, nice aspect of it, that we were in it very much together. And then there's also the aspect that because we know each other so well and we're so close, that we are the ones who would piss each other off more than anything else, and we would push each other's buttons intentionally in ways that we wouldn't do it with other people, just because, you know, we were more annoyed with each other because we know each other so well. So there was like one time we stayed in a hotel somewhere, we split up the drive, and we had to we had to finish the drive to get to the show at whatever time. And I go out to the van in the morning and I checked, and somehow like we miscalculated, and we were actually like an hour further away than we anticipated. And so I told my brother, he was like the sleep in guy. And so I was like, hey, I know we said we were going to leave it at 11, but we actually have to leave at 10. So like, can you please wake up and take a shower and like get in the van, because we have to go keep, like, we had to finish this drive so we could get to the show on time. And Ben told me, he's like, you said we were going to leave at 11, so I'm leaving at 11. I have my alarm set for 10:30. I'm not waking up until then. Like, I'm tired. And so he went back to bed, and we ended up leaving. And I was like, all this stuff is fine. Like, we got to the show a little late, but nothing bad happened. But him and I that day were just, like, insulting each other across the van, just, like, calling each other names and just, like, letting each other have it in a way that I wouldn't have done to anybody else in the band. But him and I, like, in those moments, our closeness was like it was a problem because we wanted to go at it. We wanted to piss each other off, and it worked. So there were at least those two things that immediately come to mind. But it's something that I still am very happy to experience with my brother. You know, it's something that I think really colored our relationship, and it's still something that it brings us together today.
Well, speaking of brothers, one of my favorite bands, because I grew up with the British invasion.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Who and the Hollies and the Kinks. The Davies brothers, Ray and Dave, who've been in the Kinks forever, I witnessed a performance of theirs right up the street from where I live at a place called the Hollywood Palladium. They got in a verbal fight on stage, and Dave playing the song on guitar where Ray's not playing guitar, so he just walks up to Dave right on stage and punches him in the face as hard as he can. Dave falls down. He's laying on his back. Now, if you've seen Spinal Tap, there's the scene where, is it Derek Smalls, the bass player, gets trapped in the giant bulb of a flower or whatever science fiction thing it is, and he falls over. Dave Davies is lying on his back, and he's playing the guitar solo for the song with a smile on his face like, can't you hit me harder? And there's two roadies that are like trying to lift him up by his arms and his shoulders while he's playing the solo. Now, getting back to brothers, I've grown up with the McDonald brothers, Stephen and Jeffrey, who are in an amazing, they're in a pop band called Red Cross. And they to this day, they're basically just teenagers in adult bodies. They're playing a show at a place called the El Rey Theater, and Stephen has called and said, I'm running late. We're gonna have to go on stage. It might be 5-10 minutes late. And Jeffrey, who's angry about this, takes it upon himself. Well, I'm gonna get back at Stephen. What he does is he detunes Stephen's bass. And now, when I hear this story, pardon me, I'm just like, this makes total sense, because these guys, they're like 13 and 14-year-olds. They probably still sit at home for breakfast and eat Fruit Loops.
The patterns all come rushing back.
Yeah.
I have one for you, Keith, too.
And
I know
you know, and I'm not saying what I said about the McDonald brothers in any kind of negative way, because I love those guys. I've known Stephen since he was 11 years old, and I love those guys. They're like younger brothers.
it's a beautiful thing to see that relationship. I have to ask you about this one too, because not a literal brother, but I feel like almost the way when I hear Ned talk about Ben, Keith, reminds me of the way when I hear you talk about Jeffrey Lee Pierce.
Well, Jeffrey Lee Pierce, I met Jeffrey because he was a staff writer for a magazine called Slash, which would eventually become a record label. And Jeffrey would write about reggae. Jeffrey would write about rhythm and blues. Jeffrey would write about jazz. Jeffrey would write about punk rock, but he was more interested in the three other genres of music that I had just gone down. Jeffrey was a huge fan of the music that was coming out of the South Bay where I'm from. And that included, he loved Red Cross. He loved those brothers to death. He loved the Alley Cats, who were also from the South Bay. He loved Black Flag. I mean, he swore up and down that Black Flag was one of the greatest things that he'd ever heard. He loved the Circle Jerks. He, at one time, was my roommate. Now, while he was my roommate, he had been playing in a band called Creeping Ritual with Kid Congo. Kid Congo would eventually go on to play with the Cramps. He would play with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And he played in the Gun Club. That's like being, like leading the Major League Baseball in home runs. But Jeffrey was one of my best friends. And unfortunately, in that process of us being friends, I had to watch him slowly kill himself. He's one of these guys that had a built-in self-destruct mechanism. And it was really sad. I mean, incredibly talented. The first couple of Gun Club records, they're on the list of all of the great records that have come out of Southern California. Those two records could easily be in the top 20. And that would be along with bands like the Byrds and the Doors and Love and X and the Germs. That first Germs album is untouchable. And that list that's a mountain of music that a lot of these bands are never ever going to come close to.
Now, my appreciation greatly elevated for the Gun Club in the last however many years, courtesy of my wife saying you really got to dive into this catalog. And that's part of where I love the connection with you, only because I don't know if Ned knows this story. Will you tell the story about Jeffrey Lee Pierce and just trading the band name with the album title name? Because Ned, you tell me if you know the story, and I want to see if it reminds you of anything from your arc too, because this is just, what a cool piece of history this is.
Well, what happened with us, Jeffrey and I, when Jeffrey was my roommate, we would have all of these conversations. And I had started to get into this story when I said Jeffrey was in a band called the Creeping Ritual with a bunch of music critics and Kid Congo. And he was getting ready to start a new band. He was ditching all of those guys. It's like, I love these guys, but they're limited in their musical capabilities. So he's starting a new band, and he, in one of our conversations, he says, Keith, I'm starting a new band. I need a name for my band. And I had a list of bands, just like really goofy, oddball names. And the Gun Club was on the list. I said, Jeffrey, knowing you and your musical roots and what you're into, the Gun Club would, I'll let you use that name. And Jeffrey said, I love the name. Of course, I'm going to use it. In the conversation, he said, what do you want me to trade you for the name? I've got to give you I've got to pay you for the name. And I said, well, I don't really know, but the Circle Jerks are working on our first album. We're a couple of songs short. So Jeffrey said, perfect. I've got a song, and he plays it for me. And I'm just like thrilled to death because I love Jeffrey. The song's totally happening. As it turns out, it was the last song on our group Sex album. And later on, because what was happening at the time, when it came to like all of our music and all of the stuff that was happening in LA, everything was moving really fast, really quickly. You know, talking about getting caught up in it and not paying attention to a lot of things, you know, because we talked about this being on tour, you know, in all of these different places, going to all of these places that we love and all of these venues and everything. Everything's flying so fast that he plays the song for me. I take it to the guys. We're rehearsing in my garage. We're learning these songs in my garage. And we start playing it. The guys in the band love it. And so it ends up on a record. Later on, it would come to me that we've been playing a sped up version of It's a Small World After All, which is one of the songs you will hear all of the little kids singing at Disneyland. It's a small world after all.
Or
and it
group
was
sex.
like, Jeffrey,
It's all
you
there.
Jeffrey, you motherfucker, how could you do that?
Only better, because you'll never hear that song and not hear It's a Small World After All.
I've never heard that before.
Ned, do you have any like crazy trades, collaborations, stuff like that? Or even just back and forth with friends over stuff, let alone with bands?
Nothing like that good comes to mind.
Sure.
You know, it's kind of hard to compete with something like that.
Did you horse trade stuff? You must have you told other friends or other bands, hey, that's a cool idea. And you watched it go on to be something. There's got to be something in there.
I'm terrible at thinking on my feet with stuff like this, of trying to recall stuff, but I'm sure there must have been. Yeah, of course.
Well, what about, let's do,
what about you and your brother working on music together?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you both of you knew how to push each other's buttons. Did you ever get to the point where it's like you're working on something and all of a sudden it comes to a halt because you don't know where to go with it, and it's like, come on now, come up with something?
There's you know what, I watched the Beatles the Get Back Peter Jackson documentary whenever that came out a year or two ago, and there's that scene with I forget what song it is off the top of my head now. The song
is it Get Back?
I think it's the song Get Back, right?
I think it's
He
the
just
song Get
writes it
Back
in
where
the
there's
middle of this. And there's like,
They wrote that in the middle of, they wrote that in the studio, like,
right?
it's almost like one take.
Yeah, there's that clip of Paul just like kind of humming it along. I think that the best thing like that ever happened to us was just there's you know, like there's obviously you just like kind of start playing something off the top of your head and it's like, oh, this is a pretty good idea. And you just kind of like run with it and it kind of completes itself pretty quickly. But we had a song called Secret Society, and it was a song that I kind of just played a chord and I knew kind of right away how the song would go. And my brother Ben was like, I'm not too sure about this one. I think it's kind of like it's missing something. And then and I was like, well, I kind of already know how the vocals are gonna go. And so I started singing it, and then he was like, oh, now like this is a good song. And like up until that point he was like, I'm not sure if this won't make the cut. Like this is probably, it's going to be a B-side or something. And that was just like a thing that happened really quickly of just showing him the idea and then the song completed itself in, what felt like 5 minutes. It was done within a practice,
One of the things that I want to bring up is noticing Ned's room. I want to ask Ned if he has any kids, because I see all of the stuffed animals on the couch behind him.
No, I don't have any kids. I have a girlfriend who likes stuffed animals.
Okay, well,
This is where kids come
nice.
from eventually.
Yeah.
You might know.
Blame your future kids on the stuffed animals.
It's just, I don't know. I have a problem of liking things, and so it's like some of the stuff behind me, I was showing Matt earlier, that right there is a Mr. Peanut doll that was gifted to us by a friend, because Planters Peanuts is from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and they eventually moved out of there. But it's like these little things that we see along the way, and they remind us of home, or they remind us of something, and then you just end up buying them and then taking them and throwing them on the couch,
It's amazing how all this stuff works. Now I'm going to ask you in a second why I think the two of you needed to be introduced to each other. So we're going to see if you can guess the game. But I have to ask you at least one a question each first, because I got so many notes. There's notes flying all over the place. It looks like behind Ned on the couch there. Keith, I got to ask you this question first. This whole idea of you told the story about the show, about Slayer, and Ned made the comment to expect anything. Like, you just have to appreciate it. You have to love it in the moment. Like, here you are, you're on stage with Flea, you're on stage with that band, you have the most incredible set, you have this beautiful memory. Does that only come because you can be so present with the moment and just love that you're performing, and then later you remember it?
Well, you have to understand that we're doing something that not a lot of people can do. We're also, it's a form of intoxication. The playing music and being in your zone, which is, it's like playing a sport, like Michael Jordan being able to score 80 points in a game or what have you. There's nothing like this on the face of the earth. It's just, it's unexplainable. Now, getting back to that particular show, Jeffrey Lee Pierce was there. He was hanging out with John Doe from X. They cornered, after we got off stage, I'd had no time to even dry off. I had enough time to open a beer. So I'm sipping on my beer. I'm standing in a corner, and all of a sudden, I'm surrounded by Jeffrey Lee Pierce and John Doe, and they were just like, we've never ever seen anything like that. And I was just flabbergasted. They walk away. Dave Alvin, who is the guitar player, the younger of the two, Alvin, speaking of brothers, the Alvin brothers, Dave, the youngest of the two, who is also the guitar player in the Blasters at that time, has me in a situation where I can't move. And he's looking at me like, if he could, like, stab me in the heart or shoot me with fucking ray gun eyes, he was pissed off. Like, how are we supposed to go up there and play after what you guys just did? And I looked at him. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Blasters, but at one point in time, Jello Biafra had an album called Let Them Eat Jelly Beans. And it's all punk rock bands. And one of the last bands on this compilation is the Blasters. The Blasters are Americana. The Blasters are rhythm and blues. The Blasters, their whole thing is based on black music, like blues,
True roots rock band. Exceptional.
Very,
exceptional
very, very much. But they are exceptional. They play like the first time I saw Los Lobos, who are like Norteña and all of this proper folk music from Mexico. The first time I saw them, they played like, this is fucking punk rock. These guys, the energy that these guys are playing with, the music that they're playing, it's not supposed to be played this way. And it's like they're playing like it's the last night that they're going to get to play because Earth's gone tomorrow. It's like the nuclear war goes off. The Blasters are the same way. Jello had them on this roster of all of these punk rock bands. And the reason he said is that they play with an energy that's unmatched. And I said, Dave, you're going to get up there, and these people that are here to see you are going to be so excited, and you're going to get up there, and you're going to more than hold your own. You guys, I've seen you several times before in the past, and you guys never, ever, ever fail to bring the energy. So you don't worry about what we did. You get up there and you do your thing, and you will hold your own.
Amazing. Amazing stuff. Ned, I'm curious for you. I wrote this down like 6 times in the margins. You're here, you're listening to these stories with Keith. You're making a go at it, man. You're like mid-30s. You've been going strong with bands, with touring, with keeping the art alive. Keith, what are you turning this year? What's the birthday? You got a big milestone coming up, I think.
Right? I'm a couple of months away from 70.
And when's the last time you played out on a show? You played an off show, what, weeks ago? No, you Flag. When was the Flag gig? I just
we played a couple of weeks ago in Las Vegas at Punk Rock Bowling.
69 years old. Is this you, Ned, someday?
Hey, Ned, have you ever been offered to play at Punk Rock Bowling?
No, I haven't.
Well, maybe what you need to do is light a fire under whoever books your tours for you and have them talk to the Stern brothers and say, hey, at least let us come out and play one of the club shows, or let us play the stage next to the big main stage. There's so many great bands. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So many styles. So what do you think, Ned? You gonna keep going? Are you still gonna be making art at 69? You see any other way to not be?
That's the goal. It's I don't do this because it's anything other than something I feel like I have to do. And so I know that there are times when I feel like it's impossible to feel like there's like another song to write. Like you go through these things and you put so much into something, into a project, into a record, into a tour, and you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna to do anything else beyond this. But then inevitably another idea comes, another song comes, another show comes. And when I was in my mid-20s, that felt like such a dramatic time in my life, because I felt like I'm like going through all like the creative stuff and I'll like never get it back or something. And I realized that's just not the truth. And so now I'm just appreciative of having the opportunity to play music. And I just want to I'm just going to continue doing that. It's just, it's something that I feel like I have to do.
Well, one of the things that you also could find yourself doing is with each album, setting a bar for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, being close to 70, the creative thing is, it's not like it's gone away. It's just sometimes it's difficult to get everybody in the room trying to be like into what you're into. And, you know, there are all of these walls. There's writer's block. Right now, I'm not having any problems whatsoever writing lyrics. It's just a matter of, I got to figure out a way to go to my guys and say, hey, the songs that you guys are writing, just, they have kind of a vibe of old men trying to play fast. And that's not going to cut it. We've not put out an album. It'll be 30 years since we put out a new album. And it's like, if we're going to put out a half-assed album, there's no reason to even be trying to be creative. It's just, that's writer's block. That's a big wall. But I've been excited about this entire process that we're going through here because I've heard of your band. I've heard of your band on several occasions. I've read about your band on several occasions. I've never heard any of your music. Where do I start? If you're going to tell somebody that's never heard your music, where's the best place to start?
With Title Fight, I'd say our album, Floral Green. It's our second LP.
Floral Green.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm writing that down because when we get through here, that's the first thing I'm going to listen to.
I appreciate it.
I think you'll like it. And then more recently, though, because I think literally, just dawning on me, at half your age, Keith, Ned's been putting down some amazing stuff with Glitterer. If he was going to start on any of the Glitterer, where would you have him see the current stuff? Because this is like, I mean, forget Black Flag to Circle Jerks. This is Circle Jerks to Off in your own era here somehow.
Yeah. With Glitter, we just put out a record last year called Rationale with Glitterer. And so, I don't know if you feel the same way, but for me, the newest stuff is always the most exciting. And so that's what I always recommend.
So are you on Bandcamp?
Yeah.
Well, that's the best place to go. Certainly better than Spotify. I don't want to advertise Spotify.
We're sending you links after this conversation. I can promise you that, Keith, because I need you to hear some Glitterer, and we got to see if I can, catch.
Well,
maybe.
Ned said that both bands are up on Bandcamp, and that's all I need for the time being.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we got special shout out, Alex Russin, Val Zeigler. You guys helped make this conversation happen. But now it's time to play the guessing. Why does Ned Russin need to meet Keith Morris? Keith, I'm making you go first. I have it written down on the back of this card. Why do you think I wanted you guys to meet each other today?
Guess. I would say maybe he wants to buy me a meal at IHOP or
the International House of Pancakes. Watch out now.
Or a burger somewhere.
Can't go wrong with that.
A couple of slices of pizza.
Oh, we got some Angelos, maybe. I don't know. Ned, what do you think? What do you think I wrote down on the back of this card? Why did I want to introduce you today?
Because of our hair. That was the first champion, so I'm just going to go with that.
It was all for the dreadlock advice. I wrote down, you're going to appreciate this, I hope, Keith. I said, the incline of Western civilization, how to grow up, get older, keep art going. I love this idea. There's resistance in this. It's an incline. It's not just I hate the whole decline or everything's doomer or bad. I love seeing what you're doing, Keith. I love that you're still going. If people want to find more Keith Morris stuff, where should they look up on the internet, Keith?
I'm on Facebook. I would hope that my Facebook page is interesting enough to hold people's attention. Some of my bands are on Facebook. I mean, that's an easy place to go. You could also Google my name and look at all of the goofy photos.
All the good stuff goes up. I'm plugging the book, too. You did a great job with this. You and Jim Ruland did a really wonderful job with this book.
Thank you. I'm actually going to be doing a thing at the Punk Rock Museum in Las Vegas with Jim. We're gonna have a situation where we're gonna sit down and Jim wrote a book. He wrote the Bad Religion book.
Also exceptional.
He wrote a a book about the history of SST. He wrote my book. He's got a couple of other books. He writes on a regular basis for a fanzine called Razor K. And that's that was the, some of the people that used to write for Flipside, and another fantastic fanzine.
Ned, what about you? People want to find more of the Glitterer stuff. I'm plugging your book so I don't forget too. You did a great job. I want more fiction. Keep that going. Stay away from, I'll take the auto fiction, but I love this exploration too. Where should people look you up if they want to find more?
Glitterer is, on all the usual places. I think I would like to plug, we have a newsletter, because I don't really care for social media. But we have a Substack if you just search us on there. And that's where obviously we post all like the tour dates and whatever, but I feel like we could actually say things there rather than just post a picture and a little caption or something.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I want one more second of this if you got time for it. Keith, you were giving us kind of an on the ground update with what's going on. It's a messed up world right now. I got two punk rock guys talking to me. You're not seeing the situation with ICE and on the ground in LA that I'm seeing on the news. You want to just give a shout out to what's actually going on in your neighborhood?
Well, our governor has actually issued a statement where he's asking people to be cool. The whole idea is we have the right to protest. We don't have the right to turn the protest into a riot. We don't need that right now, because we have somebody who's ready to start war on the streets of all of the major cities in the United States. He's just that unhinged. He's just that much of a doofus. And that's being kind. Calling him a doofus is being kind. Now we're getting into politics. It's unavoidable. The rule is we just be good people. And being good people means we continue to do the things that we do, and we live our lives. And being good people, good things will or should happen to us. We, being good people, spread goodwill. Now, I'm in a situation where my lyrical writing right now, I'm furious. I'm pissed off. And who was that? Yeah, okay.
Just keep going. You're pissed off.
Yeah. And this is a great time for lyric writing. Like, as Henry Rollins says, we got to rise above. We've got to be better than them. And we have to spread this amongst ourselves and hope that we want good things to happen for good people. Now, there's some bad people out there. They're bad, but they're not completely evil. And these people, hopefully, will see what we're doing and want to be a part of it. What's happening here is not like what Fox News will tell you. They're going to pick out the bits that they want to exploit. They want to lie about what's going on here. It's all right. We've had situations like this before, but not to the point where the National Guard needs to be called in. And especially the United States Marines. There are some people that are trying to stir up some shit. And when all of a sudden ICE shows up, I live in a city that I'm a member of the minority, and I don't mind. Not in the least bit. I'm not scared. These people They're not vicious. They're not out to get us. A lot of them, and the majority of them, are just good people, just wanting to live their lives. I'm not here to mess with you. Please don't mess with me. That's the bottom line. And unfortunately, whenever we have some of these situations, they do get a little bit out of hand. There'll be people throwing things, doing stuff to make the opposite, the other people pissed off. And we don't need that to happen. Our president wants to declare martial law. He's looking for an excuse to bring upon martial law, because what that does is it takes away all of our rights. We're in America, and we're good citizens. The majority of us are just good, decent people. The majority of us are pretty much law-abiding people. Yeah, some of us do stuff that's a bit goofy and out of hand. That happens every now and then. But for the most part, we got a protest coming up this weekend, right up here, right like 2 blocks from where I'm at. It's called No Kings. We're not here for a dictatorship. This country's not here for a dictatorship. This country's here because we told the king to go fuck himself. That's why we're here. That was why we defeated the British at the very beginning of our country. Just be good, have a good time, hang with your friends, be around people that you want to be around, and try to stay out of their way. Because a lot of them are going to do what they're going to do, and it doesn't matter what we say.
There's an old Battlestar Galactica quote I keep coming back to, and Ned, I'll let you have the last word on this one if you have anything about that. But it was this idea that the quote went, "There's a reason you separate military and police. One fights the enemies of the state, the other serves and protects the people. When the military becomes both, then the enemies of the state tend to become the people." I think that's really important. I'm feeling that a lot these days. Situation in D.C., Ned? The vibe up getting hot there?
Yeah, there was a protest planned for today that seems to have shifted. It's in a neighborhood that didn't really ask for the protest, where there's a lot of vulnerable people there. And I think my thoughts on the matter are kind of the significance of community and actually listening to and supporting the community that you exist in. Moving beyond yourself and understanding that everybody deserves the opportunity to have, a well-lived life. And so I'm just trying to ensure that other people have the same ability to feel safe and to do what they want to do. And so, yeah, I'm following other people's leads on that matter and just trying to do my best to help people continue to feel safe as they should.
Love thy neighbor is still a pretty punk statement, I think, There's something about it. I appreciate the work you're doing. I appreciate you guys making the art you're making in the world. You're watching Just Press Record right here on Cultish Creative YouTube, and we are out.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for joining us. Like, comment, and hey, subscribe below to Cultish Creative on YouTube if you haven't already. As the good compliance people want me to remind you, Matt Zeigler, that's me, is a managing director at Sunpoint Investments. The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Sunpoint Investments. No information on this podcast should be construed as investment advice. Securities discussed in the podcast may be holdings of clients of Sunpoint Investments. I hope you've been entertained. I hope you found this useful. I hope you talk to a professional before you try any of this stuff at home. And most of all, I hope you've subscribed. Be nice to each other out there. And don't forget, head over to cultishcreative.com and let's make curiosity a habit together. And I'm out.